Hey guys, it's Katie. So full disclosure, I was going to be very well prepared for this video. I got out a notebook. I was scrolling through Facebook actually because I figured that was going to be the spot where I had the most amount of like photos and posts, just things that would trigger memories of the last decade. But then the app was crashing and things were just getting weird, and so I decided, you know what, we're just gonna kind of go through this as it comes. So this is totally on the fly. I also don't know if anyone's actually gonna be interested in this content other than like me. I feel like I'm basically filming this for my own self to be like a time capsule type thing. But as you can tell by the title of this video, this is a decade in review. You know, when it went from 2009 to 2010, I do not remember people making it nearly as big of a deal. Like, I don't even think I fully realized or thought about like the fact that it was changing a decade. And this time around, everyone has been, you know, decade, end of a decade, end of a decade. And I'm just like, whoa. So it is really strange. And I just wanted to sit down. I pulled up some photos on Facebook and I'm just gonna kind of, oh, whoops. I'm just gonna kind of scroll through and like talk about the highs and the lows. A lot can happen in 10 years. I think it's absolutely insane that I was 20 at the beginning of the last decade and now I'm entering the next decade as a 30-year-old. Like, it's kind of cool that I line up like that, you know, with like the end of a personal deck. Wow. How many cups of coffee did I have today? Like the end of a personal decade. Does that make any sense? I don't know. Maybe you know what I'm saying. So let's take a scroll back to memory lane. So much has happened. Like, when I think about it, from 20 to 30, holy smokes. And anybody out there who's older than me, I would love to hear like your 2 cents, because I feel like 20 to 30 is like a vast amount of growth. I started this decade not even being able to like legally drink or to, you know, not having graduated college yet, to now I'm like a real adult. And I just feel like you learn so much in your 20s. And anyway, I've gone through, oh man, I've been in love. I've gone through heartbreak. I have lost friends. I have had tragic things happen in my family. I mean, it's like, holy smokes, when you really look at it like that, it's almost a little scary to think like, okay, well, what's the next decade gonna bring? But let's just take a look. Okay, so January 2010, I was in college. I think I was a junior. Was I a junior? And I was just living life, you know, nothing major to report. I was 20. In the spring, April of 2010, I turned 21. I went to Vegas and it was awesome. Like, here's a picture of me getting carded by the bouncer. I turned 21 on a Saturday, so it was perfect because it was like Friday night at midnight, and it was like everything that like a Vegas 21st birthday should be made of, like it was. This picture kind of sums things up a bit. Like, that's a good capture of me. So prior to me turning 21, I was kind of not in the best mental state. And so I think a lot of things about turning 21, I really started to kind of blossom and come into my own a little bit. Let's see. Yep, I'm still just in college. I'm chilling. Okay, the end of 2010. I do know that this is significant. At the end of 2010, I made a big decision to not return to college that following semester, but to instead go study abroad essentially at Disneyland and do what's called the Disney College Program. Enter some of the best friends that I have ever met that are still in my life to this day. Shout out to Nola, shout out to Sanjay, shout out to Brittany. It was so much fun. Here's like some random pictures of us. I was a 21-year-old living in like a dorm type thing, working at Disneyland, going to Disneyland every single day. Like, it was just the time of my life. Now, at this time, I was in school to become a teacher. Spoiler alert, that's what I am now. But when I went to Disney and I got bit by that bug, I remember like I basically fully gave up on teaching. I was like, I'm not gonna be a teacher. I'm gonna work for Disney. I'm just gonna like, you know, and so we'll get to that. But yeah, this was a time in my life where it sounds cheesy, but maybe those of you who have done it before or like have a similar experience, like I really came alive in this whole college program thing. It was really, really, really good for me, for my mental state. I gained a lot of confidence, which is something that like I really, really, really struggled with in my first few years of college. Like I had horrible self-talk and self like worth problems, and you know, so this was really good for me, and it was filled with so many amazing memories. Oh my gosh. Hey Josh. We were such Disney freaks. We would, oh my God, this picture is hilarious. We would literally go to the parks all the time, like dress up. We would get autographs from the characters. Like we were just crazy. So when that internship ended, I did not want to go back to school. I did not want to leave California. Every part of my body just wanted to stay there, especially because the group of friends that I had made were all a year older than me. They were from different parts of the country, and they were going to stay in California and live and like start their young adult lives. And I so desperately wanted to stay. But I knew that like nobody had to force me. I mean, my parents would have forced me probably, but they didn't have to force me. I knew that I wanted to finish school. I knew that I wanted to get my degree. That was always important to me. And I'm extremely grateful that I did, and that I did in fact finish with my teaching program and everything, because yeah, again, that's what I do now. So I go back to college. I have 2 more semesters left. I had 1 more semester with like everyone that I had gone to college with, and then because I had gone to the Disney program in the fall, I had like I graduated basically at the midpoint. So I graduated in December, whereas like everyone else normally would graduate in spring. So my first semester back, that was one of my best semesters of my life. I lived in this house that I called the Bachelorette Pad because I lived alone. I'll spare you the details of how and why, but like I lived alone in this full-on house, and it was amazing. And I was really busy with like my teaching program stuff at that point, but it was like so epic. I think we had every Friday off. It was just like the time of my life. Like I'm scrolling through, I like shout out to Whitney, shout out to Sarah Troba, shout out to, I mean, I have so many pictures of us just like going out. Like that was my like true peak of college, like because the first 3 years, again, I had really, really struggled with some demons that I didn't really make anyone aware of. But anyway, here's a picture of me and Sarah at a date dash. That was a pretty infamous date dash for me personally, but okay, so things are great, so much fun, great. Then all my friends graduate, and I had the summer of my life that year. It was so much fun. Okay, let's flash forward. I'm now in 2011, right? Can I do just about? Yeah, it's now 2011, and I'm in my last like semester of college, and it was also just a blast. And at the time, again, I was super like, yeah. I was in student teaching the whole bit, which by the way, student teaching is a full-on 40-hour-a-week job, except you're not getting paid and you still have like papers and things on top of that. And my heart was so not in it. And the only thing that I remember really got me through was the kids, because I did love the kids. I've always loved kids and connected with kids. And so I had an awesome mentor teacher. I had an awesome, like, the school that I taught at was amazing. Shout out to Kelly if you're watching this. She was a mom of one of my, oh my gosh, I can't believe how old he is now, or how old I am now. But anyway, like I loved everything about it. It's just that in my heart, in my mind, I was like, this is great, but like I'm going to Disney, so none of this matters. Luckily though, I didn't let that stop me from graduating with honors and all of that good stuff. And I was able to put that teaching license in my back pocket, and I didn't take it out for a long time, but at least I had it in my pocket. So here's a picture of me graduating college. Okay, so my plan always after graduating college was to go back to Disney, reunite with my friends, and work at Disney again. There was a moment there where it almost didn't happen because it was hard to like transfer back over there because I was working at the Disney store. Long story short, I was able to transfer back and do the Disney College program again, which was great fun. So then enter the chapter of my life called the Disney Frat House. Moment of silence for the Disney Frat House. It was such an amazing time in my life. It was renting a house with all of my close girlfriends. We all worked at Disney, and it was literally a frat house. We went out, I'm gonna say anywhere between 3 to 6 times a week. We all worked at Disney where we didn't have cares in the world really. We were like, I was 22. Yeah, I think we were all like between 22, 23, and it was just such a fun time. It was filled with like watching Bravo and watching The Bachelor and just like constantly being around each other and constantly just like, it was so much fun. So yes, frat house was a great life, but then eventually we kind of kept growing, and you know, was it Brittany that first was gonna move to LA, or was it Nola that first was gonna move to Chicago? I don't know. We basically started realizing that people wanted to get different jobs and whatever. I was still kicking it at Disney, living my life, but you know, it was time for me to move on as well, for all of us. So I moved into an apartment. Right before this, I entered, I would say like my first, like adult relationship, I guess, if you want to call it that. Like, I had been single for a really long time prior to this, and I entered a relationship. It was a good one. It was a long one. Let's see, what year are we in now? Oh, this feels like, yeah, I skipped some years here. But I mean, I don't think there's anything totally major to report. I just like worked at Disney, lived in Southern California, had a boyfriend, had a lot of really good friends, like just continued that like young 20s lifestyle, but kind of started to mature a little bit more. You know, there were ups and downs throughout that. That's like the long and short of it all. And then we will say that, how much do I want to say on here? I mean, it's no secret if you've ever watched any of my videos. So during that time, I experienced my first like real heartbreak. Like, oh my gosh, like, and I think the reason it was like such a big heartbreak was because I had a boyfriend for 5 years, but I was so young, and honestly, I feel like I wasn't really that into him anyway. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I loved him, but like, I don't know. And this was like a different caliber. And so the reason I reference that is just because there's something really weird about like your first heartbreak, because any other heartbreak I've experienced since then, including with the same boy, because we did a little bit of like on and off, it's never as bad as that first one. And in a way, it kind of makes you feel really invincible in a way. I just said in a way twice, because it's like, what could possibly be worse than this? And that has actually rung true throughout the rest of this decade. Like any other time I've been heartbroken, cough, cough, my recent situation. And it's not to say that this particular relationship was, I don't know. Can you relate to that at all? It's just like your first real heartbreak. Like there's nothing like that. And once it's almost like a good thing to just get it out of the way, because then you have a certain level of like resilience and strength from that point on. Okay. Okay. Was it the end of, what year was it? The end of, okay, so now we're jumping up to 2015. So yeah, there was just a lot of like Disney, friends, relationship, heartbreak, dating, living life. Now I'm in 2015, and now I leave Disney. Disney is fabulous. I will forever like love all the memories I have from there and all the friends I made, and like it was literally a once in a lifetime experience. I think it's the coolest thing ever to say that I worked at Disneyland. I think some of the things I got to do and see are some of the coolest things ever. Like I literally cherish those times so much, but ultimately, when you work there, you are a tiny fish in a really big pond, and it's extremely hard to work your way to the top. And I just you know, there wasn't anything directly in the correlation of like what I went to school for, and it just became a time where I was so tired of like working holidays. I was the lead of a supervisor at the Disneyland Hotel at one point, and I remember my last holiday working there, I was the graveyard supervisor on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Like, so like I remember it being like literally like 8 or 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and I was like in the shower getting ready to go. And I don't know. So it was just time for me to like branch out of that. But I had lost all this confidence in myself and all this like zest to like actually be a teacher. So even though I took the test and paid the money and did all these things to get my teaching license in California, I like kind of didn't fully pull the trigger yet. And so anyway, at the end of 2015, or like mid 2015, I went to a different company and I worked in sales for an apartment company. And that was like totally random, and I actually really didn't like that job. I loved the people I met. Shout out to Lauren, Raquel, JLo, Jojo, Ashley, but I really didn't care for that job. I will say though, it was nice to have had that sales experience, and flashing forward to when I did eventually like become a teacher, I think it's really great that I had all these different like random work experiences under my belt. Like the customer service mecca that is Disney, being a hotel supervisor, like at what point would I have ever done that if I hadn't like done it for Disney, and then to be in sales. And anyway, so let's see, around this time I went through another heartbreak. And that one was a bad one too. I had lived with this character, which I'm not saying I'm not saying I advise against, but I'm not saying, I don't know, I'm not the person to ask right now because I'm just not. But yeah, it was, that was a moment, oh my gosh, I remember, like, and I remember feeling so much shame kind of about that relationship not working out, and about the way that I had like moved in with them. And I just remember it was literally one of the hardest times of my life, but I remember like being so proud of how much resilience I had, because before I even called my mom in Phoenix, and I was in Orange County at the time, before I even called my mom to tell her that my relationship had ended, I already had a new apartment. I want to say, was I moved in? No, I wasn't moved in yet, but I had like all my bills, like my electricity and my this and my that was like already cut off and already set up to the new place, and I had already signed my new lease, and I had already like, it's like I had already kind of taken care of all these things. And I think subconsciously that was because I was so ashamed to be like, well, this failed. And even though my mom, and I remember she was like, Katie, like why? Like she felt sad that I had even felt that way, but I just remember feeling so like, this sucks, but like, look at me. Like I peeled myself up off the floor, and I had to do like the really crappy things that come along with like separating a household. And I was out there on my own, and like, anyway, so I'm working for the apartment company. I'm having another like good time of life. Like I was kind of just like floating along and like letting life teach me the lessons that it had in store for me. And I had a really like good group of friends, and it was great fun. And then at the end of 2016, so yeah, I worked for them for I think just over a year, or like maybe around a year. At the end of 2016 is when I flew up to Portland with one of my best friends, Lauren. That vlog is actually captured here on my channel, and that's when I met, I mean, it's like, I don't know why I don't want to say his name. You guys know his name. But that's when I met Travis. And, you know, let me just try to be like non-biased, and let me say that that was such a freaking special time. It was so awesome. It was great. It was so great to like be in love again. And so we pretty much immediately, well, yeah, we kind of immediately fell in love, but in like a very like, we were like best friends. We just had this like dynamic and this connection, and it was really just special. And then anyhow, so we entered a long distance relationship. And one thing that I will forever have to give him credit for is, at least at that time, he was really good at motivating people, I would say, and like motivating me and pushing me, and we just had this really good dynamic going where we kind of really helped each other to be better. And so again, I had lost all this confidence in my ability to be a teacher because I was sitting here thinking, well, I'm washed up. Like, I graduated 5 years ago. Like, nobody's gonna want me or whatever. And I remember he just really, really pushed me and like helped me to cut the stuff, like cut the excuses and just kind of do it. And so we were in long distance for a while, and then long distance can only really end one of 3 ways, I always say. And so at the time, because I was not from California, I was not in my teaching career, the option we decided on was for me to move up here. And so that's what I did. And again, back to the whole moving in thing, you know, I don't again, like, advise against it per se. But I just think there's a lot that's involved with it. And so it wasn't a mistake. I mean, when I came up here, like, I'll tell you what, that transition of living with that person was easier than living with the previous person. I don't necessarily know why. I don't know. And, you know, okay, so that was 2017, I think, was then when I moved up here. And it took a while to get acclimated up here, but at the same time, like, it happened pretty fast for me. And I think so from there, I had to do some growing. And we had a few growing pains of me getting outside of my comfort zone. And again, I will forever like appreciate his part in helping me do that, because he did definitely play a part in helping to push me and to just better myself. I got my teaching license, and then I spent a year subbing. I started going to therapy. I, you know, really kind of starting to tackle some of those like deep set anxiety things and deep set, like, oh, I didn't even talk about this. Yeah, deep set daddy issues and things like that. I mean, I guess it's, yeah, it's, I don't necessarily want to spill all the drama on here or all the stuff, but yeah, I, in this decade, my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. That was back in 2012. It was early onset Alzheimer's. And he also, he and his wife, they cut everyone out of their lives. So that was really hard for both me and my brother. Sorry, I'm kind of like jumping out of order here, but you know, it made me think of it when I said that I was going to therapy and really working through some of those issues and some of those things. And so that's a very sad part of this decade, but it is something that I have for the most part made peace with, because I kind of had to, and like I've kind of had to make those boundaries or whatever you want to call them. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it, and so I hope there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. And it's not to say that me and my brother wanted it to be this way or that we didn't try. We did try, and his illness is a factor in it, which is not lost on us at all. And I'm very grateful that I have my brother, because if I was like an only child, I think it would just be that much harder to process and deal with. But it's something that at this point in our lives, me and my brother have just done the best that we can. And my brother is such an amazing father to his 2 kids. So yeah, that was something. Okay, so where are we in the story here? Okay, yes, my nephew was born before I moved up to Oregon, not very long before. But okay, so now I'm in Oregon and I'm subbing and I'm gaining like this confidence again about myself. And honestly, like I think I was truly really pretty content and happy with myself for a while, and I really have been. And that dips up and down, but for the most part, I would say from being like 20, maybe 6 or 27 on, honestly like 25 and on, was just like a confidence, and that has grown with every passing year. Like being 30, I'm like 30 and a half now. It's so true that you just like care so much less about dumb things or what people think, and you just feel so much more like secure in yourself. So anyway, okay, so yeah, then that was great. Okay, and then at the end of, was it 2018 then, that I got my first teaching job. No, the end of 2017. I got my first like full-time, full-on first year teaching job, and it was in kindergarten, and it was like, it was just like, it was scary, but it was like really exciting, and it was really hard, and I learned a lot, but I really, really, really loved it. And at the end in April of that year, no. So that was the 2018-2019 school year. Yeah. So then we go into 2019, and then in April of that year is when I got engaged. And about 4 months later, I got my engagement revoked. Let's just say neither one of those things were my idea, to get engaged nor to end the relationship. But you know, here I am. It's literally like a few days left of this decade. And so I am in my second year of teaching. I'm at a new school, and the demise of my relationship actually happened right before, I'm talking like 5 days before I had to start this new job. And so to say where I've been in these last, what has it been, 4 months, it has been another hurdle and another like tough time, but also just another like chapter. I don't know. And I remember one of my biggest takeaways with like with the breakup and with it all, like, and as much as I was blindsided and it was difficult and painful and I have plenty of feelings about it, I remember thinking like, but you know what, Katie, like, you're okay though. Like, you were happy with yourself. You've been happy with yourself, and you will continue to be happy with yourself. And just like in all facets of life, like, you have a great job, you have a great family, you have great friends. And so that has really carried me through. And I think in so many ways now I'm just in this point where I have that 30-year-old confidence, and I have some like wisdom under my belt. And yeah, I might be a little jaded to the whole like love and relationships thing at this point in time, but I'm not closed down to anything. I'm like, I am just literally riding the waves of life and doing what I can to like be the best for everybody, be the best for myself, and to just like make the most out of life, you know? I just feel like I'm not longing for anything except for just like being proud, being content, being, you know, like feeling fulfilled, like feeling like I am being a contributing member of society and a great teacher and a great friend and a great aunt and this. And as for the love stuff, like, we will see. So I don't really think about it that much. I don't really worry about it. That's just kind of where I am right now. And this video was definitely all over the place. I also definitely stopped scrolling through pictures, but we will say this is where I am ending the decade with David Dobrik as my background. So there's that. I hope that at least one person out there who's not related to me, or like, you know, got enjoyment out of this rambly video, decade in review. I would love to know what your highlight of the decade was, and maybe what your pit and your peak. Although I guess that means I would need to answer that, and that's a loaded question. So yeah, that's a tough cue. I will say that some of my proudest accomplishments of the decade were graduating college, getting my first teaching job, all the times that I've had to be a resilient, I don't curse on here, but I just had to say that, like, a resilient girl, because it's been plenty of times throughout this decade, and that's been, yeah, it sucked, but it's something that I can look back on and be like, wow, girl, like, go and dust your shoulders off, you know? And then as for a pit, I mean, I think I kind of mentioned a few, so thank y'all for watching. Let's hope that 2020 is like another a great decade, a happy, positive decade, and I'll see y'all then. Catch y'all in 2020. Love you. Bye.